Keel hauling. Frequently employed by the naval forces of European countries, the procedure of keel hauling involved meticulous preparation by the ship's crew. It commenced with the attachment of a long rope to a pulley system, carefully rigged on one side of the ship. This rope was then meticulously threaded beneath the keel, a fundamental structure beam running along the ship's underside, crucial to the vessel's stability. Subsequently, the rope was raised on the opposite side of the ship. For those less acquainted with nautical terminology, the keel's significance lay in its role as the spine of the ship, a literal backbone upon which the vessel's structural integrity hinged. This weighty beam served as a cornerstone in the ship's construction. The unfortunate recipient of this gruesome punishment, often a wayward sailor or a defiant pirate, underwent a harrowing preparation. Stripped of all clothing and frequently laden with additional weights to ensure escape was nigh impossible, they were securely fastened to the rope. This hapless individual, soon to become the victim, was then hoisted overboard by the crew, destined for an ordeal that would haunt their every waking moment. As the condemned soul dangled over the inky abyss, they were subjected to the most tormenting aspect of keel hauling. The rope, entwined with the ill-fated mariner, was dragged beneath the belly of the vessel. This torturous journey, skimming the jagged and barnacle-encrusted hull of the ship, inflicted grievous injuries, internal bleeding, deep lacerations, and in some heart-wrenching instances, death were the dreadful consequences of this barbaric practice. Survivors of the ordeal, if they existed, were far from spared the cruel hand of fate. Neglected and without access to medical care, they became vulnerable to infections that festered in the wounds wrought by the merciless keel hauling. Effective as it was in maintaining discipline and fostering obedience, it is now regarded as a particularly gruesome form of punishment. As naval regulations and standards of conduct evolved with the passage of time, the world came to recognize it for what it was, an archaic and heinous method of torture. Consequently, it was banned in most navies across the globe, as authorities deemed it to be an excessively cruel and unusual form of retribution. In the intricate web of pirate justice, the gravity of misconduct or mutiny determined the severity of the punishments meted out. The spectrum of penalties spanned from confinement in the dreaded brig to the cruel isolation of marooning on a remote and forsaken island. However, a punishment that instilled terror above all was the infamous practice of keel hauling. A name that sent shudders down the spines of sailors served a dual purpose, one of which was deterrence. This brutal form of punishment held such a grim reputation that its mere mention could quell any inkling of rebellion or transgressive behavior, whether it be theft, insubordination, or even the gravest offense of murder. Life as a pirate unfolded in a maelstrom of chaos, where lawlessness and anarchy often reigned. In such an environment, punishments had to be severe enough to deter crew members from straying from the established code of conduct. Keel hauling, among other draconian measures, became a dire necessity to ensure not only the survival of the pirate crew, but also to maintain the unwavering authority of the captain. The act of keel hauling, employed as a powerful deterrent, was a method of making a stark example out of a crew member who had clearly broken the sacred rules of the ship. By subjecting an offender to the horrors of keel hauling, pirate captains effectively curtailed the likelihood of others following suit and ensured the adherence of the entire crew to the uncompromising code of conduct that governed life on most private vessels. Yet, keel hauling was not solely reserved for insubordination. Acts of disloyalty and betrayal, which threatened the very fabric of trust on board, could also consign a crew member to this gruesome fate. While cinematic portrayals, such as Pirates of the Caribbean, may have romanticized the notion of piracy, the stark reality often bore little resemblance to these tales. The period from the late 17th to the early 18th century is often celebrated as the golden age of piracy. However, for those who lived as active pirates during this era, life was far from golden. It was a complex and often bleak existence. Pirate crews represented a diverse amalgamation of society's outcasts, including criminals, social pariahs, economic misfits, and even audacious thrill-seekers. To thrive amidst the harsh and unpredictable nature of the high seas, pirates needed to be made of sterner stuff than most. Among their ranks were individuals who had once served in various navies or merchant fleets, but had become captivated by the promise of the vast rewards attainable through piracy's audacious path. Throughout maritime history, pirates operated within the confines of a strict code of conduct, a set of rules that governed their actions, ensured equitable sharing of the spoils, and provided a framework for resolving disputes. Among these notorious figures of the high seas, luminaries such as Blackbeard and Anne Bonny earned renown not just for their daring exploits, but also for their embrace of democratic principles aboard their ships. The majority of pirates emerged from backgrounds where they languished at the bottom rung of society's hierarchy. Having rebelled against their conventional existences, they chose to construct an environment strikingly different from the authoritarian and often brutal conditions they had endured on legitimate vessels. This transformative decision ushered in a modicum of democracy aboard pirate ships. The process of electing captains and other influential positions, as well as making collective decisions concerning routes and targets, typified the democratic environment that thrived amidst pirate crews. It was a marked departure from the top-down command structures observed on naval and merchant vessels of the time. Merchant ships and coastal communities constituted the principal prey for pirate vessels during this period. To ensure their success, pirate crews relied on nimble and agile ships, capable of swift attacks and quick escapes. This strategic advantage transformed piracy into a highly lucrative profession, where the most adept pirates could amass substantial wealth through careful target selection and calculated raids. However, the life of a pirate was far from a straightforward narrative of selecting a target and plundering it with ease. It was fraught with danger. Pirates faced a multifaceted array of threats, from ferocious battles at sea to relentless pursuit by law enforcement authorities. Injuries sustained during perilous encounters were commonplace, and the specter of death loomed large over their daily existence. Yet, danger wasn't solely external. Pirate crews also grappled with internal challenges, including the very real chance of rebellion, an ever-present threat that could undermine the cohesion and stability of the crew and ship. In the complex world of piracy during the Golden Age, where captains were elected by the crew and authority was vested in them, the captain's dominion was absolute, and his pronouncements held sway in most situations. Nevertheless, the annals of pirate lore are abundant with accounts of mutiny that rippled across the seas over the years. Often, pirate crews would grow discontented with their captain's leadership or directions, particularly if they sensed an inequitable distribution of the coveted loot. The rapture caused by mutiny was a grave matter, and it teetered on the precipice of life and death for both the mutineers and the captain, along with his staunch allies. Keel hauling serves as a chilling reminder of the horrors that unfolded in the world of piracy and the unrelenting hardships endured aboard private vessels. This practice, among others, was so brutal that it instilled a deep-rooted fear of the sea in many pirates. As Terry Pratchett aptly noted in his book, The Light Fantastic, a lot of pirates didn't even bother learning to swim, highlighting the pervasive dangers lurking beneath the waves, where sharp-toothed predators awaited, adding to horrific practices such as keel hauling. Thank you for joining us on this voyage through nasty history, and we look forward to welcoming you again in our future explorations.